Good evening, everyone. We'd like to get started.
Nice picture.
We have some announcements. If you could all be seated, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, you're good.
What do you mean?
You have to have a second.
Okay, that was terrific. So let's get started. I'd like to welcome you to this public meeting of the New York City Rent Guidelines Board. This is just one meeting in a series of public meetings and hearings to determine renewal lease adjustments for rent-stabilized housing units in New York City with leases commencing or being renewed on or after October 1st, 2016, and on or before September 30th, 2017. First order of business is I will take roll call of the members of the board. Harvey Epstein.
Present.
Okay. Would you make sure your mics are on, members? Thank you. All right. Stephen Flax.
Present.
Shayla Garcia.
Present.
Cecilia Hosa.
Present.
Sabil Rahman.
Present.
Helen Schaub.
Present.
Mary Salfi.
Present.
Scott Walsh.
Present.
And myself, Kathleen Roberts. Let the record show that we have a quorum. The proposed rental adjustments voted at this meeting will be published in the city record and posted on our website, nycrgb.org. 5 public hearings to comment on the proposed guidelines will be held on the following dates, times, and locations, which will also be posted. I think they are already posted on the website. So, Thursday, June 9th, at the Jamaica Performing Arts Center in Jamaica, New York, from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Monday, June 13th, at St. Francis College in Brooklyn, New York, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Thursday, June 16th, Elabash Recital Hall at the Graduate Center, CUNY. That's here, I believe, from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Tuesday, June 21st, the Dempsey Multi-Service Center at 127 West 127th Street in New York. This is an added location from past years. We hope to see many of you there. Now, directions to these hearings can be found on our website, nycrgb.org, in the About Us section of the website, Meeting Schedule. And pre-registration to speak at these hearings will begin tomorrow at 9 a.m. You can sign up to speak at any of these meetings by calling the Rent Guidelines Board offices at 212-669-7480, and that number is also on the website. For further information, see our website, nycrgb.org. And as always, there are copies of our meeting schedule here tonight for you to pick up. The next meeting of the board will be held on May 26th in the Landmarks Preservation Commission Conference Room, David N. Dinkins Municipal Building, 1 Center Street, 9th floor, New York, New York. The final vote will take place on June 27th, starting at 6:30 p.m. It will be held at the Great Hall at Cooper Union, 7 East 7th Street, at the corner of 3rd Avenue in Manhattan. That concludes the announcements. Now, for the what I will describe as painful part of these proceedings. I'm required by law to read the proposed 2016 apartment order, and I'm also going to read, although we'll vote separately on them, the proposed 2016 hotel order. That way, when we finish voting on the apartment and loft order, we will not have to then stop and read through the hotel order. So I apologize. This is a legal requirement. Bear with me. I appreciate your patience. This is New York City Rent Guidelines Board Proposed 2016 Apartment Order Number 48. Proposed Order Number 48, apartments and lofts, rent levels for leases commencing October 1, 2016 through September 30th, 2017. Notice is hereby given pursuant to the authority vested in the New York City Rent Guidelines Board by the Rent Stabilization Law of 1969 as amended, and the Emergency Tenant Protection Act of 1974 as amended, and as implemented by Resolution Number 276 of 1974 of the New York City Council, and in accordance with the requirements of Section 1043 of the New York City Charter, that the Rent Guidelines Board, RGB, hereby proposes the following levels of fair rent increases over lawful rents charged and paid on September 30th, 2016. These rent adjustments will apply to rent-stabilized apartments with leases commencing on or after October 1 through September 30th, 2017. Rent guidelines for loft units subject to Section 287, Subdivision 7 of the Multiple Dwelling Law are also included in this order. Proposed adjustment for renewal leases, apartments. Together with such further adjustments as may be authorized by law, the annual adjustment for renewal leases for apartments shall be for a one-year renewal lease commencing on or after October 1, 2016, and on or before September 30th, 2017, blank, question mark. That's what we'll be voting on. For a two-year renewal lease commencing on or after October 1, 2016, and on or before September 30th, 2017, again, blank, question mark. That's what we'll be voting on. These adjustments shall also apply to dwelling units in a structure subject to the partial tax exemption program under Section 421A of the Real Property Tax Law, or in a structure subject to Section 423 of the Real Property Tax Law as a redevelopment project. Proposed vacancy allowance for apartments. There shall be blank, question mark, vacancy allowance. Again, something to be voted on. Proposed additional adjustments for rent-stabilized apartments sublet under Section 2525.6 of the Rent Stabilization Code. In the event of a sublease governed by Subdivision E of Section 2525.6 of the Rent Stabilization Code, the allowance authorized by such subdivision shall be blank. We'll fill that in by vote. Proposed adjustments for lofts, units in the category of buildings covered by Article 7C of the Multiple Dwelling Law. The Rent Guidelines Board proposes the following levels of rent increase above the, quote, base rent, unquote, as defined in Section 286, Subdivision 4 of the Multiple Dwelling Law for units to which these guidelines are applicable in accordance with Article 7C of the Multiple Dwelling Law. For one-year increase periods commencing on or after October 1, 2016, and on or before September 30th, 2017, blank, question mark, we'll vote on that. For two-year increase periods commencing on or after October 1, 2016, and on or before September 30th, 2017, blank, we'll fill that in. Vacant loft units, proposal, there shall be blank, vacancy allowance. Fractional terms proposal. For the purposes of these guidelines, any lease or tenancy for a period up to and including 1 year shall be deemed a one-year lease or tenancy, and any lease or tenancy for a period of over 1 year and up to and including 2 years shall be deemed a 2-year lease or tenancy. Escalator clauses proposal. Where a lease for a dwelling unit in effect on May 31st, 1968, or where a lease in effect on June 30th, 1974, for a dwelling unit which became subject to the Rent Stabilization Law of 1969 by virtue of the Emergency Tenant Protection Act of 1974 and Resolution Number 276 of the New York City Council, contained an escalator clause for the increased cost of operation, and such clause is still in effect, the lawful rent on September 30, 2016, over which the fair rent under this order is computed, shall include the increased rental, if any, due under such clause, except those charges which accrued within 1 year of the commencement of the renewal lease. Moreover, where a lease contained an escalator clause that the owner may validly renew under the code unless the owner elects or has elected in writing to delete such clause, effective no later than October 1, 2016, from the existing lease, and all subsequent leases for such dwelling unit, the increased rental, if any, due under such escalator clause shall be offset against the amount of increase authorized under this order. Special adjustments under prior orders proposal. All rent adjustments lawfully implemented and maintained under previous apartment orders and included in the base rent in effect on September 30th, 2016 shall continue to be included in the base rent for the purpose of computing subsequent rents adjusted pursuant to this order. Proposed special guideline. Under Section 26-513B1 of the New York City Administrative Code and Section 9E of the Emergency Tenant Protection Act of 1974, the Rent Guidelines Board is obligated to promulgate special guidelines to aid the State Division of Housing and Community Renewal in its determination of initial legal regulated rents for housing accommodations previously subject to the city rent and rehabilitation law, which are the subject of a tenant application for adjustment. The Rent Guidelines Board hereby proposes the following special guidelines. For dwelling units subject to the rent and rehabilitation law on September 30th, 2016, which become vacant after September 30th, 2016, the special guideline shall be blank, question mark, we'll be filling that in. Decontrolled units proposal. The permissible increase for decontrolled units as referenced in Order 3A, which become decontrolled after September 30th, 2016, shall be blank, to be determined this evening. Credits proposal. Rentals charged and paid in excess of the levels of rent increase established by this order shall be fully credited against the next month's rent. Statement of basis and purpose. The Rent Guidelines Board is authorized to promulgate rent guidelines governing apartment units subject to the Rent Stabilization Law of 1969 as amended, and the Emergency Tenant Protection Act of 1974 as amended. The purpose of these guidelines is to implement the public policy set forth in findings and declaration of emergency of the Rent Stabilization Law of 1969, Section 26-501 of the New York City Administrative Code, and in the legislative finding contained in the Emergency Tenant Protection Act of 1974, Law 1974, Section 576, Section 4, bracket, Section 2. The Rent Guidelines Board is also authorized to promulgate rent guidelines for loft units subject to Section 286, Subdivision 7 of the Multiple Dwelling Law. The purpose of the loft guidelines is to implement the public policy set forth in the legislative findings of Article 7C of the Multiple Dwelling Law, Section 280, dated May 3rd, 2016, signed by me as Chair of the New York City Rent Guidelines Board. That's the first one.
I'll read the next one.
She finally stopped talking.
My colleague has offered to step in here to read the next one.
Which one is it?
The hotel. Thank you, Steve.
Sure. New York City Rent Guidelines Board proposed 2016 Hotel Order Number 46. Proposed Order Number 46. Hotels, rooming houses, single-room occupancy buildings, and lodging houses. Rent levels to be effective for leases commencing October 1st, 2016 through September 13th, 2017. Notice is hereby given pursuant to the authority vested in the New York City Rent Guidelines Board by the Rent Stabilization Law of 1969, as amended, and the Emergency Tenant Protection Act of 1974, as amended, and as implemented by Resolution Number 276 of 1974 of the New York City Council, and in accordance with the requirements of Section 1043 of the New York City Charter, that the Rent Guidelines Board hereby proposes the following levels of fair rent increases over lawful rents charged and paid on September 30th, 2016. Applicability. This order shall apply to units and buildings subject to the hotel section of the Rent Stabilization Law, Sections 26-504C and 26-506 of the New York City Administrative Code, as amended, or the Emergency Tenant Protection Act of 1974. Year 1974, Circa 576, and so forth. Do you read those?
Yes, I read everything.
4,
The law
5
department requires us to read everything.
4, 5, and A, and 7. With respect to any tenant who has no lease or rental agreement, the level of rent increase established herein shall be effective as 1 year from the date of the tenant's commencing occupancy, or as 1 year from the date of the last rent adjustment charged to the tenant, or as of October 1st, 2016, whichever is later. The anniversary date will also serve as the effective date for all subsequent Rent Guidelines Board hotel orders, unless the board shall specifically provide otherwise in the order. Where a lease or rental agreement is in effect, this order shall govern the rent increase applicable on or after October 1st, 2016. Upon expiration of such lease or rental agreement, but in no event prior to 1 year from the commencement date of the expiring lease, unless the parties have contracted to be bound by the effective date of this order. Proposed rent guidelines for hotels, rooming houses, single-room occupancy buildings, and lodging houses. Pursuant to its mandate to promulgate rent adjustments for hotel units subject to the Rent Stabilization Law of 1969, as amended 26-510E of the New York City Administrative Code, the Rent Guidelines Board hereby proposes the following rent adjustments. The allowable level of a rent adjustment over the lawful rent actually charged and paid on September 30th, 2016 shall be residential Class A apartment hotels to be filled out, lodging houses to be determined, rooming houses Class B and containing less than 30 units to be determined, and 4 Class B hotels to be determined. And 5, single-room occupancy buildings, MDL Section 248 SROs to be determined. New tenancies proposal to be determined, vacancy allowance is permitted under this order. Additional charges proposal. It is expressly understood that the rents collectible under the terms of this order are intended to compensate in full for all services provided without extra charge on the statutory date for the particular hotel dwelling unit at, at the commencement of the tenancy, if subsequent thereto. No additional charges may be made to a tenant for such services. However, such charges may be called or identified. Statement of basis and purpose. The Rent Guidelines Board is authorized to promulgate rent guidelines governing hotel units subject to the Rent Stabilization Law of 1969, as amended, and the Emergency Tenant Protection Act of 1974, as amended. The purpose of these guidelines is to implement the policies set forth in findings and declaration of emergency of the Rent Stabilization Law of 1969, Section 26-501 of the New York City Administration Code, and in the legislative finding contained in the Emergency Tenant Protection Act of 1974, 1974, Chapter 576, Section 4, Section 2. Dated May 3rd, 2016, signed by Honorable Kathleen A. Roberts, the Chair of the Rent Guidelines Board.
All right, the pain is over. Thank you. All right, at this time, we're going to consider motions for proposed rental adjustments for rent-stabilized apartments and lofts. It is understood that these proposals include the adoption of the language that was just read to you of proposed apartment and loft order number 48. And pursuant to the tradition of alternating order of presentation of motions, this year I will turn first to our tenant members and ask them whether they have a motion that they wish to present.
Only if you want to.
Good evening. So I'm going to start again. I know that I did this last year at every hearing. I feel like we have to be reminded about what our mandate is as a board. It is not to make any party specifically happy, but it's to balance the scales around what we see as a city and what the city as a whole's needs are. And for 46 years, really, we have, as a board, historically ignored the tenant balance of the side of the situation. I think that when the data merited a rent rollback, they ignored it. I think that when we needed modest increases, it was ignored. And so this year, we're hoping that every board member will set the record straight this year by granting a rent rollback. And I'm gonna just go, it's not gonna be as boring as what they read earlier, but I will go through some of the data that supports a rent rollback this year. Yeah, sorry, I lost my track, okay. So landlords historically have had expenses. They run the building and they are more than compensated for those expenses. In 2008, their expenses were 64.3%, and in 2004, when we have the most recent data, it was 60.6%. There was a decrease in what they spent in every unit that they had. And so that was at the peak of a recession. And so everybody was hurting, and tenants saw a rent increase and a really big increase year after 2008. Their income overall last year increased 4.9%. And so if we talk about what tenants have we seen our incomes increase? No. landlords have not only been overcompensated since 2008, if you look at the data since 1991, or for 26 years really, their operating costs have gone up 163% since 1990, but their price of inflation hasn't gone up that high. So not only are they being remained whole, that means that they're not only making a profit, but that they have continued to increase what that profit looks like. And I don't think that's right. We've ignored tenants' unemployment, we've ignored tenants' unemployment, that their jobs are not getting better, that there is a recession, that rents are really high, that people are not only burdened, but severely burdened throughout the city. And I don't think that's right. For the landlords who say that they are in hardship, there's an application for that through DHCR. For the landlords that say they can't afford their mortgage, there were barely any foreclosures in the city. And not only that, but their overall expenses of what they can buy in the market has decreased this year. This is why we had a PIOC of negative 1.2%. And not only do landlords get increases from the Rent Guidelines Board, they get increases from major capital improvements, MCIs, they get increases from IAIs, individual apartment increase, they get basic vacancy bonuses. So if someone was living there for over a certain amount of time, they can get 20%, 15, 10, 5%, greater than anything that the board has historically done. And they're being charged fees for washers, air conditioning, late fees, fees for anything, repairs, illegal fees. All of these are income that landlords are getting. The data that we have in front of us, I think, paints a really clear picture that we deserve a rent rollback in the city. And that is... Our job as a board is not to make sure that landlords continue to make a profit or increase their profit margins. It's really to make sure that we are being fair to the city because we are in a housing crisis. So I am going to encourage the board to look at the data, balance the scales of what we need as a city, and to take the bold action of voting for a rent rollback of negative 0%, negative 4% to 0% for a 1-year lease, and that's the range. So we want them to vote between that. And for a 2-year lease, we are suggesting a range of negative 2% to 0%. And I just want to highlight that this is not about tenants or landlords. This is about the right thing for the city. There's 57,000 people sleeping in homeless shelters every night. And those numbers are not going down. And when we know landlords are not only being kept whole, our duty as a board is to vote for the fair thing for the city. And that is a rent rollback this year.
Okay. All right, we have some additional questions. Here. I understand that the motion is for a range of minus 4% to 0 for 1-year leases and minus 2% to 0 for 2-year leases. Do you have a proposal with respect to sublet allowance?
0.
And do you have a proposal with respect to 1-year loft leases?
0. Oh, the same range, sorry.
Same range?
Yeah, negative 4% to 0.
All right,
Negative 2.
and 2 years would be minus negative 2 to 0?
Yes.
And do you have any proposal with respect to the special guideline?
0.
All right. Okay. Is there a second to the motion that has just been made?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Excuse me one moment. Mistake. All right. Is there any discussion prior to taking a vote on the motion? Yes, Harvey.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Shayla's motion. And I just want to remind the members of the board that we all sat together over the last month, hearing the data, hearing the testimony, hearing the information that, Shayla and I really firmly believe calls for a rent rollback this year, and at least to the range that we proposed. We have to look at this in a really holistic way. We have to look at this as the future of our city, and we have to think about what kind of city we all want to live in. When we see 21,000 evictions each year, and 43% of those coming out of rent-stabilized apartments. When we see zero from our report of foreclosures for multifamily buildings, when we see mortgage rates at the lowest in history, when we see the cost of getting mortgages, the costs are lowest in history, when we see owners' losses overall the lowest in history, when we see tenants' incomes not going up, when we see people struggling, when we hear their stories, it dictates to us that we need to listen to this and we need to think about what our future will be. I encourage everyone to support that motion, and hopefully we can have a range and have a conversation that talks about the need for a rent rollback in this city. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further discussion before we take a vote on the motion from the tenant members? Let the record reflect that there is no further discussion. At this time, we will have a vote on the motion that has been proposed by Shayla, seconded by Harvey, and we will go in alphabetical order in terms of the vote. Harvey Epstein, how do you vote?
Yes.
Stephen Flax, how do you vote?
No.
Shayla Garcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Cecilia Hosa? Yes. Sabil Rahman?
No.
Helen Schaub? No. Mary Sarafi?
No.
Scott Walsh?
No.
And myself, Kathleen Roberts, I vote no.
I checked.
All right, we need to move on. on. All right, I'm going to turn things over now to the owner representatives. I mean, if everyone's straight.
I mean, are we just doing it for getting our in the dictator or I think we should. Yeah. Not saying that. Ava.
Hey, we can either move on or we can just take a recess.
I don't think many people.
Does she want to say something?
She didn't. They didn't talk to her.
Going to just take a recess because this is totally out of control.
So what do you want to do?
I think we should just stay because, I mean, this is, you can't function.
So we can ask people to stop.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful because otherwise we can't function because the court reporter can't.
I'm happy to do that.
I don't know, I mean, I guess they're deciding whether to continue to vote or to take a recess until they're ready to continue to vote. I don't know.
Excuse me, everyone. Excuse me, everyone. Hey, excuse me, everyone. Excuse me. I want to say I know we're disappointed, and excuse me, guys. You know what? I know we're all disappointed, and I know that vote didn't go the way we wanted, but we need to let the meeting go forward, and we can still protest and still. But let's go. Let the meeting go forward. If people can go back, we can get their meeting done, and we can let's go to them fire. I don't. Can people get their seats back? We'll still be able to keep talking, but let's be able to do the votes. So can people go back to their seats for? So can everyone go back to their seats, please? Please go back to your seats. Everyone, please go back to their seats. Thank you. Go back to your seats.
Talk to these people. Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. Crazy. That guy's dangerous.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, this is worse than last year.
That was your number.
Oh, that's her.
Please take your seats. We have much more business to conduct. Thank you.
That's a gift. She knows.
At this point, I would like to ask the owner members of the board whether you wish to make a proposal.
Can't hear anything.
Explain your vote! See if you want to defense of your vote! See if you want to defense of your vote! Explain 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 your vote!
Read it.
Explain your vote! 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 Explain your vote!
Yeah.
What I want to remind everybody tonight is that this is the preliminary vote. There's about to be 5 public hearings. There's about to be 5 public hearings where everybody here will have the opportunity to say their piece, which we encourage you to do. But tonight, we need to continue our business so that we can have those public hearings. We have to continue our business so that we can have those public hearings and hear from all of you so that you can come and stand at the microphone and express your passion. But we can't do that unless we have preliminary guidelines to consider at the public hearing. So what we would like to do is continue that business so that we can move forward and have our public hearings, to which, again, we hope all of you will come and testify. But we hope that you will be willing to let us continue our business so that we can move forward and have the public hearings that you need to be able to testify at.
We are going to move forward according to our agenda. That's not going to happen at this time. We're moving to the next order of business.
It's not a
So can I just really, I understand people are frustrated because we put a lot of time into this, but we gotta take the opportunity to hear what the other options are. We have to decide whether we're voting against them or not, and we will have many opportunities, including tonight, to continue this conversation. But I would encourage people to let's get more votes happening. We can be outraged as long as we want, but let's hear what the other options are, because now we know that Shayla's motion has now failed. We want to hear what the other options are. And let's just keep this moving. And I understand we're frustrated, and we can express our frustration, but we gotta let us vote now too.
All right. Thank you, Harvey. Again, I will just turn this to the owner members and ask whether you have a proposal with respect to the rent adjustments.
Okay, I'm going to give my presentation and then.
Yes, roughly seniors.
Okay. For the past 5 decades, rent regulation has unfortunately done little to ease the city's rental housing emergency. You don't think it's on? It's on. It's on. The city continues to be unable to keep pace with housing for new job creation, let alone addressing the aging housing stock in need of capital investment and rehabilitation. As the data sets at our disposal while dutifully completed by the staff, leaves many questions unanswered in aiding our decision. A few that, as an owner, we would like to restate and respectfully ask the chair to devote resources to addressing. Our decision this year is for October 1st, 2016 through September 30th, 2017, a forward-looking decision. Yet our most complete data set is from 2014. This timing delay is why the board has to consider historical trends as well as a logical future projection, all within the context of hard-won battles for increasing wages for the lowest workers in New York, which take place later this year. The exclusion of properties with 10 units or less, 1/3 of the housing in our purview, is completely absent from the discussion in the data, and this must be addressed. We have stated repeatedly that the net operating income does not equal profit. Mortgage costs and capital to maintain both new and old buildings is not optional and remains critical to maintaining the vibrant housing stock for all New Yorkers, regardless of income level. Facade repairs don't discriminate between moderate incomes and affluent buildings. During our recent public meetings, we have heard from experts and professionals on numerous city mandates that get excluded from our market overviews. Owners work actively with government to keep buildings safe and to work towards greater sustainability. These mandates do not come without a cost. All told, there are over 40 mandates excluded from our data sets, with large items like facade, repairs and inspections, lead safety measures, and sustainability benchmark, to small items like child-proof outlet covers in all public areas that was implemented this year. As owners, we dutifully comply with these mandates and in many instances go above and beyond the requirement, but this does not come with rents frozen in time. Before 2001, taxes on residential buildings were 20% of gross income. Over the past 15 years, the cost of property taxes has risen to 30 to 35% of owners' gross incomes, remaining the top expenses for owners
Let
as
him
Class 2
complete
properties
his
have achieved
statement.
double-digit increases in
He
assessment.
listened to your representatives. You should listen to him.
This troublesome tax... Should I keep going? This troublesome tax growth is an inequitable tax system that punishes rental buildings and favors single-family homeowners throughout the city. The city's taxation authority and control over rent growth is completely unsustainable. In the 2 years I've served on this board, the member has seen inconsistent accounting methodologies in many of our data sets. Two important ones that we're asking for reform are
our income and expenses for capital projects go hand in hand. Owners can't be scored on income and given no credit for the expenses in investing capital in their buildings. The inclusion of Section 8 scree and DREE tenants as rent burdened when rents are tied to means testing just pulls the entire data set into question. Our one-size-fits-all approach continues to deliver benefits to a lucky few at great cost. Owners support a direct subsidy to provide rent relief for citizens in need, but our state and local governments have failed both tenants and landlords by continuing to sit idly on important issues. Mary's going to give the second part of our presentation.
Last year and the prior guidelines have negatively affected owners' ability to provide good housing at reasonable rates. Median rents reports show a monthly rent of $1,090. This year, we are putting forward a 4% increase for a one-year rent and a 6.75% for a two-year rent. This increase comes to just over $43 for the medium renter. In context, this increase, when taken in perspective with prior years, averages 1.6% annual rent increase over the 3-year period for a one-year lease, or $18 per month. In terms of for this, we're putting forward a 10% sublet allowance.
And the same
And the same for loft.
I didn't hear the one. Can you repeat?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, excuse me, I'm
For
sorry.
the special guidelines,
I didn't hear your two-year proposal.
I didn't hear the one.
It's 4%.
6.75. 4%, 6.
Did you have a proposal with respect to this special guideline? Do you have a proposal with respect to the special guideline?
And we just did the matching.
10%.
10%? 10%.
In terms of the special guide,
Special guidelines 18.
for
Special guidelines 18.
special guideline, we
To
propose
repeat the
10%.
proposal so that everybody can hear it. The proposal is for 1 year is a 4% increase. Okay.
Guys, we got to hear what the proposal is.
Yeah.
I don't know special guidelines.
She said 10%.
But excuse me, guys, we got to hear
there-
the proposal, be able to vote against it. So we got to hear what they are proposing. So can we at least hear the proposal without shouting it down, so we at least know what we don't like?
For apartments, 1 year, 4%, 2 years, 6.75%, sublet allowance, 10%, loft, the same as the apartments, special guideline, 10%.
Okay, is there a second to this motion?
I second the motion.
The motion is seconded by Scott Walsh.
Here? I apologize.
Is there any discussion of the proposal prior to the vote? Let me ask again. I'm directing this question to my fellow board members. Is there any discussion prior to a vote on the proposal by the owner members?
Shayla.
Okay. Shayla Garcia.
Loud.
Now? Okay. Okay. So I just want to make sure that we, like, the board's business is everyone in this room's business, because they have to live with these increases every day. If landlords are really in hardship, they have a very, very easy way of showing us that. It's with data and numbers, and they don't do that. We just hear these testimonies that are kind of like, well, we're struggling. There are no hardship applications, or if there are, it's like one. We're hearing, oh, things are increasing. Transportations for tenants increase. Their salaries didn't. Food increases. Tuition increases. All of these increases, and yet we're not balancing it correctly. If landlords simply opened their books, we would know what hardship looks like.
Every year. It's in the RPIA.
And if landlords feel like they are being punished, they should sit on the other side for 46 years.
All right. Harvey Epstein.
So I really, this is to the board members and the fellow members. I honestly, I don't know where these numbers come from, the data that we saw. The data we saw don't talk about the need for owners getting a 4% increase for a one-year lease and a two-year lease of 6.75. What the data actually shows that we live in a tale of two cities. We live in New York where we have haves and have-nots. And that's what's really happening. And to reward owners who are doing well, because we all know they're doing well, and to punish tenants who are struggling to increase our eviction numbers, to increase the homeless numbers, is beyond the pale. And I understand the landlord's representative's position is to try to kind of push the landlord's interest, but this is so far beyond what's reasonable based on the data and based on the facts that we have to rely on facts. No, not every data source is perfect, but we have zero data sources that say that these numbers are relevant to anything except fiction. So I encourage everyone to vote no on this proposal.
Is there any further discussion? Let the record reflect there's no further discussion, and we'll proceed to vote. On the proposal by the owner members, Harvey Epstein.
No.
Stephen Flax.
No.
Shayla Garcia.
No.
Cecilia Hosa.
No.
Sabil Rahman.
No.
Helen Schaub.
No.
Mary Selfie.
Yes.
Scott Walsh.
Yes.
And myself, Kathleen Roberts, votes no. We will now proceed to proposals by the public members of the board. We are going to go in alphabetical order, and so I'm going to ask in alphabetical order. First of all, Stephen Flax, do you have a proposal?
No.
Cecilia Hosa,
Yes.
what is your proposal?
For the 1 year lease, I propose 0 to 1. For the second year lease, I proposed 0 to 2.
Do you have a proposal with respect to sublet allowance?
0.
And is your proposal with respect to lofts the same as your proposal with respect to apartments?
Yes.
And do you have a proposal with respect to the special guideline?
0.
All right, so the motion by Cecilia Hosa is 1 year, 0 to 1, 2 years, 0 to 2, 0 sublet allowance, 1 year loft, 0 to 1, 2 year loft, 0 to 2, and special guideline, 0. Is there a second to Cecilia Hosa's motion?
I second the motion.
All right, the motion has been seconded by Stephen Flax. We'll now have is there any discussion of the motion before we proceed to a vote?
Yes.
All right.
I just want to commend that we are having a discussion, and as a public member, I recognize that Cecilia is making a motion that is not necessarily what tenants deserve in the city, but it is a step in the right direction. And I hope that, and I encourage other public members to, if a rollback is not what you think is right, is to vote for a 0 at least.
All right, we'll now take a vote on the motion by Cecilia Hosa. Harvey Epstein.
I'll pass.
Stephen Flax.
No.
Shayla Garcia.
I'm passing.
Cecilia Hosa.
Yes.
Sabil Rahman.
No.
Helen Schaub.
No.
Mary Serafi.
No.
Scott Walsh.
No.
And I, Kathleen Roberts, vote no.
Back to abstain.
All right. I now need to go back to Harvey Epstein.
Yeah, I have to say that while I really appreciate the sentiments of 0, I'm going to abstain from this.
All right. And back to Shayla Garcia.
I'm also abstaining.
All right. The motion fails. I will now ask, continuing with our public members, I will ask whether there is a proposal by Sabil Rahman, a proposal by Helen Schaub.
No.
All right. All right, I have a proposal. At this time, I would like to put forward a motion for proposed rent adjustments for rent-stabilized apartments and lofts. As I indicated earlier, I propose to adopt the language that was read by me and by my colleague earlier. With respect to apartments, for a 1-year lease, 0 to 2%. For a 2-year lease, 0.5 to 3.5%. Sublet allowance, 10%.
I can't hear.
The sublet allowance, 10%. 1-year lease on lofts, 0 to 2%. 2-year lease on lofts, 0.5 to 3.5%. And the special guideline is 33% above the maximum base rent. Do I hear a second to my proposal?
I second the motion.
All right.
Do you want to speak or?
I'm going to do 33%. At this time, there's going to be a vote on my proposal, which was seconded by Stephen Flax. So again, in order, Harvey Epstein.
We wanted to speak on the proposal.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there discussion? Go ahead. Forgive me.
I just want to, while I appreciate a 0 in the 1-year range, I think fundamentally the range is too high. The 2% and the 2-year lease, 0.5 to 3.5%, is well beyond what we think is reasonable based on the price index of operating costs was a negative this year. The data really encourage us to look at, we wanted a rollback. Clearly, that's not what's passing, but this range is, it's too high. What Cecilia's proposal was, at least it was a lower range, and 0 was the opportunity. I would encourage all the board members to vote against this proposal, because it does not reflect the information that we've learned over the past month from all the data, and please vote no.
Shayla Garcia.
And I just want to also highlight that we are making this proposal is not only too high, but it's too high when landlords are not even collecting legal rents throughout the city, when many tenants throughout the city didn't benefit from a rent freeze last year. It is also too high because the data doesn't support it. So we are again ignoring the data. When former chairs sit with landlords, when we are here as a board, again, turning our backs on what the data clearly states, which it states a rent rollback. And so I am voting no on that proposal.
All right, we're going to take a vote. We're going to take a vote on this proposal. Harvey Epstein.
No.
Stephen Flax.
Yes.
Shayla Garcia.
No.
Cecilia Hosa.
Yes.
Sabil Rahman.
Yes.
Helen Schaub.
Yes.
Mary Sarafi.
No.
Scott Walsh.
No.
And myself, I vote yes.
Passed. God.
The motion passes so that the proposed guidelines are now voted as 0 to 2 for the first year for 1-year lease, 0.5 to 3.5 for 2-year lease, 10% for a sublet allowance, lofts 1 year 0 to 2%, 2 years 0.5 to 3.5%, and a special guideline of 33%. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
No, wait, Chair, the SRO vote? The SRO vote?
Okay, sorry.
We gotta do the SRO, we gotta do the...
Hotels, right?
Sorry, we need to do the hotels. I'm looking for my hotel rep sheet.
They're gonna be the motion.
We need to move to the hotel vote. We're going to move to discuss the hotel.
We have another type of housing we have to vote on. So if folks can just settle down for one more minute, we have another vote we have to go through.
So do you want to make the motion for the SRO?
Do I go?
Yeah.
Kathleen?
That's okay. She told me, yeah.
Okay.
Shayla Garcia.
So, she should have done that.
You want to let them do it?
So my proposal is going to be similar for the hotel tenants. Tenants throughout the city who live in SROs are not only struggling worse than rent-stabilized tenants, but they're also facing a lot of different issues, especially around illegal hotels and not getting leases. And they're losing apartments year after year. There's so little apartments that we barely have data on it. For this reason, I propose that we have a 0 increase for hotel tenants as the only number we vote on for the final vote.
0.
Is your
Across the
proposal,
board.
is your proposal for all categories?
All SROs to have a 0% increase.
All categories is 0?
All categories.
All right, the proposal is 0 for all categories of hotels. Do you, there's no need for a proviso in that instance. So is there a second to Shayla Garcia's motion?
I second that.
Okay. Any discussion before we proceed to a vote? All right, we'll take a vote then on the proposal, which is 0 for all categories of hotels. Motion made by Shayla Garcia, seconded by Harvey Epstein. Harvey Epstein, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Stephen Flax.
Yes.
Shayla Garcia.
Yes.
Cecilia Hosa.
Yes.
Yes.
Sabil Rahman.
Yes.
Helen Schaub.
Yes.
Mary Sarafi.
No.
What are you going to propose?
Scott Walsh.
No.
And myself, I vote yes.
People don't understand that.
That motion carries so that the proposal that is adopted is a 0% increase for all categories of hotels. Now, can I get a motion?
Yes.
Or do we have something else I need to?
Yeah, that's something. Add this to. Color over. Yeah.
It's the same language in the current order in terms of vacant lofts and no vacancy allowance.
Okay,
Do we have to vote on it again?
If it's okay with people,
Yeah, just vote on it.
keep
Read it.
that there's no vacant loft, no vacancy allowance in lofts or apartments, and we'll keep the same language. That's
okay, could I ask, we need to take a vote with respect to apartments on vacancy allowance, on vacant loft units. Is everybody in agreement with the language in the proposed order?
We want to know why you won't explain your
Why do we have
vote
to
these
actually-
people. These people.
current order, actually.
It's actually in the current order, I'm sorry.
It's just a 0% vacancy allowance, the same language that's in the current order.
From you.
It's the same language as in the current order.
0% vacancy.
0%, but it explains it. You know, they can't go anything beyond what the law says.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is everybody okay with that? Sheila Garcia, Harvey Epstein? Yes? Cecilia?
Yes.
For apartments and vacant lofts, we'll
Yeah.
keep the same language that's in the current order.
We should just do a vote.
Do people feel defeated?
Yeah, let's just take a vote on this. So let me start with Harvey Epstein.
Exact same language in the
Same language as in the current order?
Yes.
now, just the
Okay.
no vacancy.
Stephen Flax?
Yes.
Apartments,
Shayla Garcia?
I just want to.
Yes.
Cecilia Hosa?
Yes.
Sabio Rahman? Same language as in the current order? Is that okay? All right, Helen Schaub?
They want to keep the same
Mary
language in the current
Seraphy?
order.
All right, and Scott Walsh?
No.
And I'll vote yes.
So 7-2.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't know I had to take a vote on that. All right, now, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
We are in adjournment. Thank you. I hope to see many of you at our public hearings.
Thank you.